Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to begin with the roll call. Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Kern?
Here.
Mr. McGucci?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Alfanowitz?
Here.
And Mrs. Weed?
Here.
Present.
Felt like I was back in school for a minute.
We're going to review conversation about the
Can't wait. I'll second.
Kira Handel?
Hi everyone, my name is Kira Handel. I'm currently a senior at the high school and also a four-year varsity player. Tonight I am here speaking on behalf of the girls soccer team. I would like to start out by thanking the board for providing us with a brand new turf to practice and play on. In previous years, we would have to practice and play on the field behind the 6th grade center. That meant we'd be running in, and some of us covered in geese poop. With that being said, having this new turf is beyond an upgrade. It is to my knowledge that this new field will eventually have bathrooms, a team room, a snack stand, a scoreboard, and much more features to accommodate to our games. Unfortunately, for our senior year, a few of those features will not be built yet, which are essential for our night games. We have 5 night games this season, one being our senior night. So all we are asking for is if we could please have those 5 games at Alumni. For those of you who know, many people come to watch our night games, so having bathrooms, large bleachers, scoreboards, a snack stand, and more is essential. Our snack stand is a way for our booster club to make a decent amount of money. Therefore, we're excited to hear when it's going in at the new turf. But in the time being, we wish to use Alumni so we can still bring in the revenue. Additionally, playing our night games at Alumni will allow for larger crowds due to the size of the bleachers, meaning more room for our school spirit. Going back to what I said earlier, unfortunately, all the accommodations will not be done this year, but we are well aware of what is going to be at the new turf in the future. We are ecstatic to see what it will look like when it is finally done. And we are excited to transition from Alumni to the new turf when it is completely done. Thank you again for providing us with the new turf field. I hope we can find a way to accommodate to our needs while under construction. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Kimberly Bell?
After all the times I've been up here, I'm a little nervous. So, no, I know. I'm Kimberly Bell. I am a resident of Trumb-Bowersville Borough. My children go to Trumb Elementary and Stryer Middle School. First of all, I want to thank you for Trumb's new roof. My daughter's very excited to not have a trash can next to her in the classroom with water dripping from it. So every time we drive by there, she's like, yay, new roof. Anyway, I'm coming today, and I don't even know if I'm addressing the right people for this. It came to our attention this a couple weeks ago that the requirements for the volunteers has changed, and the school district is requiring tuberculosis testing for the volunteers. I don't know if you guys passed that or it's coming from somewhere else.
You want us to answer?
Yeah, because if it's from somewhere else, I just want to voice some concerns that I have about it, and if it's not to you, then it is.
It's to the HR office, but we can do that right here. if you-
Okay, perfect. Well, we did send an email, well, okay.
Complete.
Okay, so I am the co-chair of the Fall Fitness Fundraiser for Trumbowersville Elementary. I am also a very active volunteer. I do field trips. I'm in Strayer. I volunteer for the Strayer players. I do band stuff. So I'm in the school a lot. I also work in healthcare, so I'm very well versed in tuberculosis and tuberculosis testing. I am concerned, we do, at Trum, we do a fall fitness fundraiser. I don't know if anyone's ever seen. It's a huge event. The kids love it. It is our biggest fundraising event. We raise between $19,000 to $22,000 a year for the, is it a year? Wait, on average, let me just say that. We provide the class trips for the kids, the transportation for the class trips, the assemblies. We fix equipment. We give school supplies to the kids. So it's huge. It's a big fundraiser. My concern with this is that, okay, the PA code says volunteers greater than 10 hours per week will be required to be tested. I can go along with that. That's fine. That's about 2 hours a day on average that someone would be in the school. Even with all of the volunteering I do, I'm not there 10 hours a week. You know, it's hard enough. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to get volunteers to come out to your kids' school. It's hard. They don't want to do it. We're begging all the time. To run the fall fitness program, I need at least 60 parents that day to come out and volunteer. I've been doing it for almost 5 years. It gets harder every year. People have to take days off from work. They need to arrange other childcare. It's tough. Now we're making it tougher. We did send an email to Human Resources, to someone named Amy Aiello, voicing our concerns. And here's really why I'm here. She wrote back that although the law requires this test to be done for volunteers who have 10 or more hours of contact with students per week, QCSD has the right to go above the law to ensure the safety of our students. I commend that. That's awesome. We do not have the resources to track volunteer hours per volunteer, and will have the same requirements for everyone regardless of how frequent they are in the buildings. I have a problem with that. I go in, I present my ID, I am checked in at 10:35 in the morning, and when I leave, I take off my sticker, I check out at, say, 12 noon in the afternoon. I cannot believe that our system does not have a way to track the hours that somebody is in our school buildings. So if you don't have that capability, A, that's a problem. B, that would help with the 1 or 2 parents that come to do a class party for an hour every year, or they come and help out with our bingo night for 2 hours a semester. You're limiting what we're going to be able to do for these kids. And my husband, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're being an alarmist, you're overreacting." I'm not, because I live this every year, trying to get people to come out and do things for our kids. And our kids love the stuff that we do, and I'm concerned that we're going to have to back off on some things for them, and that's not fair. I'm also asking, where do we draw the line? Because there's plenty of activities out there where parents come as spectators. The soccer team, you have lots of parents there watching a game. Why aren't they being tuberculosis tested? It's, at this point, I'm going along with the 10 hours a week, but for someone who's just coming in for a day or a half hour or just to help out, I think it's really stretching. It's overreaching. You're also asking parents to take days off from work. Has anyone ever had a tuberculosis test? Yeah. So you have to be tested. Then you have to go back and have the test read. For some people, that's going to be a day, half a day off from work, 2 days off from work. We're asking them to pay money to do this. That's a strain, even if it's only $10, which I get everyone's saying it's only $10. So, I mean, I don't know who to address this to, but this is going to become a real issue, and I'd rather address it now than wait until we can't staff these events. Thank you.
Please don't go anywhere.
Oh,
Can we have exact?
Yeah, sure. I can tell you where the change stemmed from. We attend monthly HR meetings at the county, and our HR manager came back after one of those meetings, and this was actually a topic at that meeting. It was our understanding leaving that meeting that it is a requirement of the state to have volunteers have a TB test. We found out we were actually on an island. We were the only ones at the time that weren't, and I do agree with you, some of your logic. What's the difference between your child being on an airplane, sitting aside of a bunch of strangers?
Right.
How's that any different? And so I agree and understand that entirely. So that's where it came from, and that's where it was implemented. There's also some confusion around the 10 hours as well, which, I'll follow up with our HR department and get some more information. I believe that's actually a Department of Human Service number, that 10 hours, not a Department of Education. I believe the Department of Education language is silent on some number of hours before you would need a TB test. And I don't believe this applies to anybody other than volunteers. So if there's a visitor, so they come in real quick, read a book, and leave, they don't actually get clearances either. They're just run through the Raptor. So I'll get with our HR department and make sure we have everything clarified and get some information out on that.
For the board and the audience, the Raptor, explain what that is.
Yeah, so the Raptor system is when you show up as a parent or anybody for that matter, except for some law enforcement, you have to run your driver's license through the system, and it runs you against the National Sex Offender Database.
can I just say one thing? Because I actually went online to different school districts today. We're not the only island out there. Palisades does not do TB testing. Council Rock does not. North Penn does not. Centennial and Central Bucks do, but again, for the greater than 10 hours a week. So I don't know where you found your statistic, but this was all from today on these school boards' websites. So I don't agree with that. And the 10 hours a week is actually on, there was a link in the email that you sent earlier this summer that had that greater than 10 hours a week. The link is gone now. I tried to access it today, and I can't access it now. So just saying. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to mention, I mean, I can totally appreciate where you're coming from. I used to work for a nonprofit organization where, getting volunteers is the most difficult thing, and the smallest thing can make them not want to.
Correct.
So I am interested in hearing a little bit more if there's a way that we wouldn't have to require this for everyone, because I do believe that would, even if it's not hugely significant, it would impact our volunteers, and I would hate for that to happen.
I agree with the sentiment. I just looked up the statistics, 3 cases per 100,000 people. 27 million. Granted, we all might know one person. But
Like, are we gonna
the
require a flu
discouragement
shot
of
next,
Getting
or-
a volunteer, right.
I had those statistics, but I didn't go into them. CDC, I only had 5 minutes. I know you always limit me to 5 minutes, so I try to be brief. I know, I tried. All right. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Hey, thank you.
Zach, we can look into that maybe a little further. But the Raptor, we don't have a sign-out process.
We do. I have to give them my sticker back, and she records what time I leave.
Okay, I'll shut up now. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, I'm just saying.
Give your sticker back.
Moving on. Superintendent report. Dr. Harmon.
Before we get to that, can I ask a question on behalf of the soccer, because I'm a soccer mom on the board? What needs to be done, if anything, in order for the girls' soccer team to get the 5 nights for their night games?
We were expecting them to have night games on Alumni Field. Some. I don't know if the scheduling will allow all 5. It's not just the girls that we have to consider. We have to consider field hockey and boys soccer. So we're even-handed. So they're don't know about availability. So moving things around, we have more options. As I explained, I met with the ladies today, been out to their practice a couple times already this week. Been to boys soccer also football. Field hockey starts next week, talking to all the coaches and the teams. We have an 11 field requirement in the fall. Marching band is the 11. We've got 3 teams for field hockey. We have 3 football teams. We have 4 soccer teams, 2 boys, 2 girls. And so we have a multi-field requirement, from what Kara said. And Kara, you did a great job, by the way. Goose poop has been we used to go on back there, and our guys, our facilities people have been great. How many people have put out the coyotes out there as soon as we get into season? We have a lot of maintenance folks here. They're used to putting the coyotes out there, so that now they're fake coyotes. They're not staked into the ground, but they work. But as we're expanding out, we've picked up a couple more practice fields, but we need more maturity for grass. We have a lot of work to do. Not a lot of work. We have some work to do to complete it. We have the concession stand, which is we've talked about that in the facilities meeting. And we have to move the scoreboard from Giant back, the Giant scoreboard that's in the main field back there. So that's what's not done. I'm texting Sylvia as Kira was standing there with her request to see how that would fit. But that's about 15 different competitions at night we have to figure out, plus the other nights of the week. And so we have to work it. They're going to get some of that, if not all of that. But I don't know what that is.
So in the interim, is there anything we could do to sort of, so are there lavatories or anything we can do, like temporary things?
Well, we already have porta potties out there. There is electricity out there. Kelly's already ordered storage facilities. We got another second one coming in. So the booster clubs have storage out there, and then the coaches have storage for their equipment like we do at Alumni Field. So we're building up to get the full package.
Pods.
And what about
Pods.
what about the seating? That's a concern I heard a lot of the past day or two as the mom of a former soccer team captain.
Kelly, what's the capacity of the seating out there? 300. I've never seen 300. Now, I know Kira was talking to me about the student spirit section. One of the senior projects this year is to get more kids out there. But we build it for greater than what we've experienced at our home games.
It would seem to me that if at least senior night.
That's going to be a no-brainer. That's a
If they could
no-brainer.
have at least,
That's a no-brainer. We can do
But it
that.
sounds like senior night's
And don't
coming,
forget,
so
they made districts last year and beat Penridge.
Do it.
So
Great
Well,
job.
the Penridge game may be a different kind of capacity.
I'm rooting for you. I'm giving you the plug here, girls.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. Superintendent's report, sir? Move on?
Sir, if
Okay,
you're ready.
We have 3 things to talk about tonight. First is talking about the Academy at Quakertown, and the second thing is to talk about what we've been doing for professional development this summer across the district, what our teachers have been doing, and which have been some awesome things. And the third thing is a facilities update, what we've been doing this summer to take care of our facilities and get ready for the new school year. So we'll start off with Mr. Lesher first with Dr. Hoffman, excuse me.
Sure. Thank you. Nice to see everybody again, back into the swing of things here with our board meetings. So we've been very busy since just a few short weeks ago. You approved us to begin our work on the Academy at Quakertown. It didn't have a name at that time. It does now, so very catchy. And you'll see that Mr. Lesher put out some swag for you, pencils and pens, so you can carry that with you. Have a piece of the Academy with you at all times. But what we're really excited about is the opportunity to provide an environment where we believe that our students can thrive. So we're looking at students who aren't maybe finding success in the traditional school setting and would otherwise either drop out, become disengaged, or that we're placing in other schools. So trying to bring them back in under our roof. Currently, we have captured all of the space on the other side of the wall here, and hopefully if time allows tonight and any of you are interested, I'd be happy to take you over there on a tour so you can see what we've done. And I know Mr. Lesher is going to share some great pictures, but We really have this passion to bring our students back, as I said, and also eventually to reach out to other neighboring school districts who also have the same need and allow them to send some students here on a tuition basis once we have the program up and running. And we also want to make sure that we give a very large shout out. I know Greg's going to also, but I would be remiss if I did not, to our incredible facilities team who's back here. Can you stand up, please? I'm going to make you stand up. They were here working hard. I'm sure it will be hard to believe, but I had a lot of demands and things that we wanted, and maybe a few changes along the way we saw as we went in and said, you know what, this huge door would actually look better on that wall. Can you make that happen? So they were incredible. They worked within the structure that we had. You know, obviously we weren't doing any new construction or building, you know, new areas onto the building. So they had this shell back there to work with and really made it look absolutely incredible and just so welcoming for students and families and a really exciting, innovative space for them to learn in. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lesher, who is, most of you will know, as a supervisor of STEM and working with our instructional coaches, but he has also been named the principal of record for the Academy. So he's going to do a brief presentation for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So there are two items to share with you tonight. First is to kind of give you an overview of the physical transformation of the space. Sure. The physical transformation of the space that has taken place over the past 8 weeks. And the second is to quickly review with you some of the logistics that have been done to ensure the team at the Academy is ready to go for students on September 4th. So let's start with the physical space. So before we get into the good stuff up there, we knew how much a role the physical environment of a school factors into a school climate. So our first priority was to ensure that the roughly 6,000 square feet of space back there, I think I'm close to that one, Kelly, we were going to completely overhaul it to make sure that it was right for our students. So we designed the physical layout of the school to support an environment of high expectations, focus, and professionalism. We were really aiming for this robust, colorful environment with research-based colors, I might add, that felt relaxed, welcoming, and warm. And we aimed to have a space that had flexible seating options to allow for collaboration, independence, and comfort. And for the pictures you're about to see, I think we nailed it. So the first piece up here is the commons area. The picture on the left-hand side is what I guess that hallway common space looked like when Ombudsman was leasing the space. And you can just tell just by the colors, some of the furniture in there. Far back of the room there is I think it's a 10-seat sectional for some group counseling that can take place there with our students. High top tables, and there is a couch, sofa, and chair. Colors are really standing out there with the yellow and blue. So classroom number 1, this was the space prior to us taking over. This was Ombudsman's classrooms, and in some respect, it's like a haphazard conglomeration of materials that are just in the room there. And you can see, I mean, it's kind of hard to see from here, but the carpet had some pretty major tears, some bubbles in it, some pretty bad staining or stains. And if you can see now, there you go. We went with an orange and a blue in those classrooms. You'll see the flexible seating there. There's many options for our students. There's some breakout tables as well. So when we have students who are on similar classes, they could actually get pulled to the side and collaborate together. There's a television right above them, so we can pull up their screen, or the teacher could pull up the screen and support them as well. Go ahead, Joe. So this space was actually a storage space for the Office for Teaching and Learning. So we kept our books and supplies back there from across the district. The wall in that room is pretty interesting. I don't even know how to describe the wall prior to us going in there. It's some kind of funky fabric, but as you can see, afterwards, it looks pretty great. So we have stools in there for the students to eat. We also have tables in there as well for breakfast and lunch. Yes, you will see there is an indoor basketball net in there, and yes, there is an indoor. It's an air hockey table in the back of the room. Our students The school day will start at 7:15 for our students who come first thing in the morning. They will probably arrive a little bit earlier than that, so we wanted to give them the time and space to have a recreation time. We will also have some earned privileges on their end to use that space during the day. Staff break room actually wasn't in that poor of a condition. Minus the ceiling falling apart, hanging, some of the lights hanging on by a thread. So yeah, this was also a storage space for the Office for Teaching and Learning. I think the last piece we had in there was a bunch of boxes from some book orders. And now you can see there's only 5 adults, 5 staff members. So some things have changed since, and if you go back after tonight, you'll see that it's a little bit more clean in there. There aren't as many boxes on the side, but we wanted a space for them to relax, unwind, get away from students to eat their lunch, make their photocopies, phone calls, and have coffee. So Counselor Suite, this is what, this was actually a classroom prior to us taking it over. It wasn't actually in that bad of shape. Carpets were in pretty poor shape, but the walls were fine, other than that one back wall that's had that fabric material as well. But we wanted to make sure this was an area for that could be used for some group counseling, individual counseling. So this will be Mr. Scapatici's room. You can see the transition. It looks a lot more bright and less dull in the room. So we have some tables and seats in there for just kind of any kinds of lessons from for social emotional reasons, and you'll also notice a couch and chair in the back for some counseling. And I didn't have before photos of classroom number 2, but this is what it looks like afterwards. It's actually a pretty large space. We didn't want to inundate it with too many desks to crowd the space, but we can definitely move many more desks into this area. Waiting on my assistant, yes. Next, sir. This is, great, thanks, Zach. This is our teacher on special assignment, Jamie Madden. This is her office. Came together pretty well. And yeah, this is kind of rough to look at, but this is basically some of the conditions of the bathrooms prior to us stepping in there. So kind of looks like something from a horror flick. And you'll see now things are cleaned up, cleaned up, and look very professional in the bathrooms for our students. So I think what most folks don't recognize is that I think we had about 10 days. We had about 10 days after the board made a decision to move forward with the academy to design a space, pick out furniture, colors, lighting fixtures, carpet, etc., so that Kelly, Rob, and the entire team, facilities team, had enough time to complete this massive project. And I would say an already jam-packed summer schedule. They literally had to squeeze this in, which I'm not sure how they did it. So kudos to the team. They need to be commended for how quickly they were able to transform the space into the the welcoming environment that it is today, and with all the demands and changes that Lisa and I had throughout. So again, thank you guys for all the hard work. And what you'll see up here, we still have some whiteboards that need to be put up, and we have not laid out any of the inspirational quotes on the walls yet. We're still trying to figure out what that's going to look like. But these are some of the quotes that will be placed on the walls throughout the academy. You can go to the next slide as well. We felt that a lot of these quotes really were aligned to the mission, the vision, the values and beliefs of our program and what we were hoping to get out of it, and as motivators for our students. So there's one more thing. Yep. So just to give you a quick overview of all the other logistical things that have been happening since mid to late May that were happening behind the scenes to get the academy up and running. So everything from, as you can see up there, we had to develop a budget pretty quickly. We had to hire a team immediately, and we have an incredible team that was hand-selected, hand-picked, and are going to do incredible things back at the academy. Had to design the space quickly, had to name a school, which took longer than expected. We actually we pulled our team out of the schools for 2 days for a retreat, the 5 individuals, and we spent a significant amount of time developing a vision, mission, and beliefs, because without that, there's no point of moving forward. So we needed to be on the same page about what we were about and what we were trying to accomplish in order to pick the furniture or the space or the motivational quotes, etc. Created a handbook. I think it's about a 40-page handbook. We have a Twitter account, which is not completely active yet. We are on the website. We looked at different discipline systems, incentive systems. We actually sent some of the team to learn about restorative practices. We had to think about referral forms and what does the pre-referral process look like? What does that form look like? What does the referral process and form look like? What does it look like for in-district versus out-of-district? So all those little things that folks don't really think about were big matters that we had to address. We had to identify students at both the high school and the middle school. We had preliminary meetings with the families, and then we had more formal meetings, which actually started this week for intake purposes, anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half with each family and the student. And right now, we are at 23 students. Student schedules, busing, what does the first day for adults look like when they come back August 29th? What does the first day look like for students? What does the first week look like for orientation? What does critical incident procedures look like? What does Alistro look like in this environment where it's an open space? And then just the action planning that all the principals have to do as well. So anything from PBIS to Canvas to supervision to how you're going to use data, professional development, parent engagement, community service, et cetera. Those are all things that we had to start fresh, and we're still moving. We're running as fast as we can. So that's a quick update.
Thank you, Mr. Lesher and
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Hoffman. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
For the sake of everybody watching here who may not know what the Academy is, brief explanation. Can you please, in detail, tell the taxpayer what the purpose is of the Academy? And why is it that we're starting a school inside our school?
So I think an important thing to note is that we've always had a school on the other side of the wall here. It just wasn't run by us. So just to give you a little bit of a point of reference, we had leased that space to Ombudsman Services, which is a for-profit private company, and for essentially the same amount of money that we're now operating over here, we had 4 students in the program last year and 23 now working on our own. The purpose of the program in general under our watch is to provide an environment for students who don't fit into the traditional school mold. So that could be a student who maybe has some school anxiety or school avoidance and doesn't want to go to a large school environment. It could be a student who has had some trouble and been expelled from our school, but we are still responsible by state code to educate them, so we need to remove them from the school environment, but place them here. It could be a student who has maybe some truancy issues, which we could not use Ombudsman for before, if you remember. We had to contract with another outside agency, and that maybe didn't bring us the results that we were hoping for, so we captured some of that money to spend over here as well when we ended that partnership. We find that students really appreciate the flexibility of the day, so they actually attend here half of the day, and then the other half of the time their work is done cyber, or they can attend the tech school if they are involved in the technical school. Some of them then leave and go to work, have some different job training. Dr. Harner and I met with the community college and the Workforce Development Board about a potential partnership with them, taking some of our students into the metalworking program that they have, some other things like that they could do on the other half of the day, trying to help them transition into the workforce when they're finished working with us. And ultimately, we'd also like to bring back some students, from Pupil Services, and Mrs. Plone has spoken about before, some students who we may be having some more expensive outplacements, but we feel like we could meet their needs here. We'd like to bring them back as well. So it's really just a big umbrella of a place for students who need a smaller environment for whatever reason so that they can be successful.
And how many of the 23 students are currently from out of our district? Just curious. that would be tuition paying from their district to ours?
Sure. Right now, they're all 23 of our students on the district. And in starting a program in, 8 weeks, it's a little difficult to kind of sell to someone when they come over and they can't see anything. We also feel pretty strongly that we have to make sure that we can meet the needs of our students before we involve other students. But we have planned to have an open house and have other people come in now that it's finished and offer that. But I will say that another, if you're thinking about tuition type payments, we have 3 students of those 23 who are coming back to us from cyber charter. So while that is not necessarily a revenue, money coming in, it's money that we're not putting out to pay for them to be somewhere else. So that's a pretty hefty price tag already just with 3 students.
And we did not hire any new staff. The staff was all staff that we've already had. Jobs.
Correct. If you'll remember, the staff was part of the plan to recapture the furloughs. So the nurse, the guidance counselor, and the 2 teachers were all teachers, not those individuals, but the positions were teachers that didn't need to be furloughed to be able to start this program. Great.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
And thanks again to Mr. Lesher for his hard work and to our incredible facilities team, because honestly, if you saw those pictures, it doesn't even do it justice. You really have to see what they were able to do with that space.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah, really awesome job.
Since they start real early in the morning, it's probably good that they go home shortly after Mr. Harper's done talking.
So you saw the great transformation that Greg showed you. There was a lot of collaboration that had to happen to make that work. There was a lot of projects we deferred to get through the summer, but really I'd like to recognize the facility staff that made this happen. They're really dedicated guys. Come on up. Yeah, you get to be up front.
Come on, guys.
Down. So we have Tony, John, Todd, Gus, and Rob here tonight. There was a lot of other guys that were participating in this, but these guys, you see how much pride they have in their work. They did a great job, and really just want to give them a round of applause. Thank them again. It was their hard work to pull all this together. Good job, guys. I think Todd had a speech, but
20 minutes? Is that
all right, we'll pass.
Set for 3
Thank
minutes.
you.
Thank you.
So we're about 95% done with that project. We still have some doors to do and some other things, some signage, but the pictures don't really do it justice. It's a bright, open space, and it's really going to be a big impact for the school district, I believe. So, updates on capital projects? Okay, so we have some major capital projects. It's in your board docs. 6th grade paving. It's progressing well. We're about 75% as of a week or so ago. We had some rain delays, but I believe we're going to get done on time with limited impact to any of the school. The Richland restrooms are progressing as well. All the capital projects, the Trumbowersville roof, which we heard, those projects, it had some rain delays, but we believe we're going to get done in time. And the POF HVAC controls, I expect that'll be done as well. So that's capital projects. Also, you have in your packet a list of the custodial updates. They're progressing, and as Dr. Harner said, I think this probably is our best year for custodial services. They've stepped it up. There's a lot more to finish up. We have a few weeks left, but things are looking good. We're doing building tours, staying on top of it to make sure that they're going to get the job done, and we'll be happy with it. So as the facilities projects, you see that, I believe that's included in board docs as well. I have a list of things that we did, and to go back to the academy, that took us about 6 weeks in the 10-week period that we have, that we deferred some projects to get this done. We still did some other projects along the way. Some highlights of that are we're expanding the POF parking lot by 28 spaces to accommodate the staff that are going there, doing some various painting. We had some playground border replacements at Richland Elementary School, and this is all in-house work that these guys did. Again, they have a lot of pride. Everything is great that they work on. Proud of those guys. We're doing a lot of building carpet replacement in Trumbowersville. It's a huge building, fully carpeted, and it's beyond its life. We're in the second phase of 3. Everything's going well there. And some other things, we're doing a tennis court pavilion at the high school, And we're hardening the front of the high school. You probably heard about that. You'll see some bollards and some boulders out front, just for safety reason, precaution. It seems a vulnerability. We're doing some things in-house that it's going to look attractive and also be safety as well. And of course, finishing up with the academy updates. Again, busy summer for us all. A few more weeks, we're trying to wrap some things up, but guys are doing a great job.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the board, I shared with the board the intent, so
Not happy. We're gonna-
You told me you wouldn't leave.
You can't leave us.
I haven't
No, we're
shared that
happy.
with, no, and there's some people in the audience that don't know yet.
Oh, well,
it's all right.
cat's out of the bag. Go ahead.
Now it's formal that,
Maybe you should let them know.
Kelly was offered an opportunity, matter of fact, recruited for an opportunity that he cannot refuse and we can't compete with, as I shared with you in executive session. Congratulations at the end of the month for the good of the audience and for the reporter there in the front that Kelly will become the new facilities director at Penn Ridge.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Served, I'm sure.
Still wearing royal blue as my color for the next month or so. So a lot of things to wrap up, and I completely.
I see a couple mouths out there just.
Forgive us, Ms. Kelly, for blowing up your spot. We apologize. Seriously.
No problem. Give me a few minutes.
Take them outside, guys, take them outside.
The last part of the superintendent's report is a brief update on our work on the academic side.
Great. So I'm happy to report that we've had some really great attendance this summer at our RELA trainings. Erin Alexa, who is our supervisor of literacy, along with some of our coaches, have run two separate sessions. They've run one for the K-2 teachers and one for the 3 to 5 teachers earlier in the summer, and then they will do those same trainings again next week. If we add up all of the teachers in elementary who will be teaching one of the literacy sections, because we do have some teachers who next year will be teaching just math or just science and social studies. We're looking at about 85 to 87% of our teachers either having already attended a training or signed up to come to one. So we're very, very happy with that. Obviously, we believe that learning the literacy curriculum and being prepared to teach that is pretty instrumental. So to see that type of attendance over the summer is really great. And we've actually had 2 teachers who were unable to come to either of the training days and scheduled independent time to come in and review the curriculum with Miss Alexa Carter and kind of get that information before school starts. So just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that and thank the teachers for being prepared to receive the students this year. And we also have some teachers who have done some independent work on their own this summer, on their own time, to be trained in either Project Lead the Way or the AP curriculum. So before you can teach those courses, you need to go typically for a week. Sometimes it can be a little bit longer, away from your family during the summer to a really intense training to be prepared to do that. So we had Alan Hunsiker and Brad Mushrush, Andy Boquist, Lori Stout, Helena Lee, and Anne-Marie Clemens all take that time away from their families this summer for at least a week. I think, and I don't know if Lori left. She was here. She's in the, we just found this news out. But I think Lori and Brad both did two sessions for 2 different classes, which is a big heavy lift, and we really appreciate them taking that time to go through this training. It is incredible experience, and most teachers, when they get to do it, it's great, but it also is a big commitment to take 1 or 2 full weeks out of your summer to do that. So I wanted to make sure that I publicly recognize them and thank them for their time again to be ready to receive their students this year.
A final note on the summertime, during the summertime is when we get our reports back on how well our students have done in Keystone exams, PSSAs, APs, how the senior class did on their final SAT performance, ACT performance, and all that. So next meeting, we'll have a report for you for that. That completes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Harner. And we're moving to standing committee reports. Ms. Weed, committee report on the policy committee. Any?
No report.
Mr. Migucci, Finance Committee report.
We have no report as well. Our next Finance Committee meeting, yeah. It's either the end of this month or we will postpone it and meet in September.
Okay.
One of the things, since we're taking you through basically the first season for the budget, full season for Mr. Diogoberta and the second season for the other board members, we'll start getting in. We have CPI. We know what index is projected to be, is like 0.1% under.
0.3, but that's not official. That's
But that's projected, but it's always comes in from the projected. So we'll start getting into it a little bit sooner, get some of your guidance on how you want us to look at for next year. So we don't have any concerns on timing, and we just go through it in a very methodical way.
Ms. Mitchell, Facilities Committee.
Yes. Excuse me. So, as always, there's a lot of stuff to cover for the facilities. So, as far as the NIDIG renovation and addition project, David Schrader did come in and give us a presentation that included the site plan, conditions, and different designs. And for those of you who don't know, we did have 2 separate meetings where we invited the parents as well as community members to come in and take a look at a presentation that would give you an idea what it would look like if students stayed within NIDIG during construction, or if they were to move to Tohickon Valley instead, and that would be a 1-year switch. And for those of you not familiar with this, really it was weighing the overall time that would be associated if we stayed at NIDIG. Then, of course, there would be a lot of disruptions, and the time of construction would take, I think, approximately 20 to 22 months, whereas if we move those students, same staff and teachers, to Tohickon Valley, that would shorten the time of construction approximately 15 months and save us an additional $1 million. And depending on, the way the project works, it's potential for more savings. We'll discuss a little bit later during the vote, but I did express some concerns as a committee chair, with the price tag of $29 million for the cost of the project. Initially, we were given the range of about $20 million for the project. So obviously, the cost of that hasn't continued to increase, and so that is a concern of mine, and I would like to discuss with the board a little bit more later about my thoughts on that. We do have some interest from Faith Christian Academy, potential offer for Tohickon Valley and Milford Middle School. And so that's great news that we're happy to have continued conversations to see what that would look like. We have a 5-year agreement with Quakertown National Bank for the sports complex, and they've agreed to pay us $75,000 a year for 5 years. I mean, $7,500?
$7,500 for 5
$75,000 would be nice.
Yeah.
Wishful thinking. For 5 years, and that would be for them to be able to have signage on our field. You all.
The naming rights.
Right, exactly, naming rights, correct. So I know Kelly Harper gave you all just an idea, giving you some updates about our capital projects. I'm really happy to see that all of those projects are on plan, on time, so that our students, we don't have any risk at this point that those projects would not be completed on time before the school year starts. And just to give you a quick idea of some of those different projects, we have, of course, the roof replacement of Trumbowersville Elementary School, HVAC controls at POF, new restroom renovations at Richland Elementary School, parking lot paving at the 6th grade center. So everything so far is on track for that. We had a couple of change orders that we discussed, and it was not anything too alarming. We also talked about procedures for that, and I'm recommending to the rest of the board that we would give Zach the authority to approve change orders under $25,000. The key here is the only way that would be something to consider would be if it would prevent projects from delays. So if it was a situation where it was an urgent decision that needed to be made, that we would give Zach that authority to move forward so that we don't delay the project and possibly even lose time, money, those type of things. So I do recommend that to the board. Otherwise, if it's underneath that amount and it can wait for our vote, then it would not need his approval. And then summer cleaning, we did receive a report that the summer cleaning status is going well, and looks like all of our staff is getting set to tour each school once that's completed to ensure it's ready for opening. Anybody else have anything to add that was at the meeting? Okay, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, legislative report. Oh, Bucks County Intermediate Unit.
The IU met once in June, after our last meeting in June, and once in July. I included the basic information on there. I have nothing earth-shattering to report, so at your leisure, please review all the goodies you can find on the agenda there. That's the IU report.
You may seamlessly segue into the legislative report.
And on to the legislative report. Similarly with the IU, I like to include the legislative tidbits I get. They usually come from the IU, so they're very lengthy. I would encourage anybody in the audience out there who's interested in how Washington or Harrisburg are attempting to mess up our schools to pay attention to a lot of those things as well. Just two little items I'll highlight, because there's a lot of information about pending legislation that's going to affect schools in various ways, but the state government passed a sweeping bill to assist schools to address security needs. There's a number of items listed. There's actually a personnel item on the agenda tonight that falls under that new bill. So, also, one of the other interesting things is that schools now are required to test for lead in their water, or if they don't want to test for lead, they are required to hold a public meeting stating why they're not testing for lead. I know Kelly's stepped out, but I believe we've been testing for lead quite a long time now, because we got caught once, like last year, once from Milford. So I know we're on top of that here. So just an interesting thing, another thing Harrisburg is doing. But again, check everything else out on the website or the agenda there. It's public knowledge as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. And Mr. Anderson, with any Education Curriculum Committee report?
All right. Tonight we talked about two courses we're adding for the Aspire transition students. The kids that go from 12th grade up through 21 years of old. The one course is called Career and Consumer Math, and it looks like it's really good to me. It talks about the units are earning money, net pay, standard deductions, personal banking, budgeting, making purchases, buying food, transportation costs, housing, leisure time, and understanding basic statistics, which would be very, very good. And the next one is Aspire English, and that also is very much oriented toward getting these kids to be functional in life. So reading signs and directions, reading comprehension, reading for enjoyment, writing for employment, research and fact-checking, responsible use of social media, speaking and listening, and using assistive technology to enhance reading and writing. And so I think that's also excellent. And we have a new text for personal finance that's been updated. And that's my report.
Thank you. Next is me for the Upper Bucks County Technical School report. And as I traditionally do, I will read it off for all y'all. The last JOC meeting was on June 21st. Quorum was met. Donations included a paver saw and a new micrometer, totaling approximately $2,300 in donation. Brief recap of the last year. We did not have a July meeting scheduled. Adult education classes were reported as having good solid growth, and we may add an adult cooking and CDL program in the future. Adult education classes are not completely full for next season, so if you know anybody, please point them in our direction to our website. The adult education programs is relatively new, and we are much closer to a cost-neutral program for 2017 program. The 2017-2018 program brought almost double the adult classes from the previous year, from 23 to 44. The adult class population grew from 226 to 410. Student attendance for 2019 is registered at 743 students throughout the school. It's an increase from 730 this year. 353 of those students were from Quakertown. Most of our classes on the student side are at capacity, with the exception of 12 classrooms. Upper Bucks County Technical School is currently seeking to expand the adult program offerings and looking for opportunities to work with local businesses and corporations in mutually beneficial undertakings. We always invite the community to donate to us as well. So if you know somebody or you have something that you think many of our programs can use, please don't hesitate to contact the school. The JOC directors authorized the change in a solicitor for the 2018-2019 year. Effective July 1st, Upper Bucks County Technical School is contracted with Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams. The employee health plan was recently changed over, Delaware Valley Insurance Trust, also known as DIVIT. We need to designate a representative to the trust. That trustee has not been dedicated yet. I thought we took care of that. The JOC authorized the purchase and installation of a new phone system. We discussed different vendors, how we can access hardware made in the United States. There was lots of discussion going back and forth. We ended up approving the motion for the quote that was in hand. This was the last meeting for our exiting executive director, Bern Wagenseller, and the first for our new executive director, Jeff Sweda. As a reminder, the Upper Bucks County Technical School Parents' Night will be from 5:30 to 7 on September 13th. The next JOC meeting is August 16th at 7 o'clock in the boardroom at the Technical School. And the Quakertown Community Education Foundation, Mr. Jackson.
The Ed Foundation met yesterday morning, actually. Since it's summertime, there was no mini grant applications, and we didn't even have a quorum because everybody's on vacation. So essentially, we met and did nothing. That's my report.
All right. The best kind of meetings. You get out early, I hope. President's report. Appointment of PSBA voting delegates. We have yet to appoint a PSBA voting delegate for QCSD. Mr. Klein, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you have anything specific you want to say since you're on the phone in regards to the PSBA voting delegates line item here? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that last part, Mr. Akmanowitz? I didn't hear that.
The PSBA line item on the agenda. Do you have anything you want to say about that before I move on?
No, sir.
Thank you.
May I share, sir?
Oh, please do.
Mr. Jackson is our PSBA rep on a regular basis, and he went off to he's gone to several conferences, which have regional conference here in the Bucks County area, national conference last spring. But now he is the IU vice president. So he's their delegate at the PSBA meeting in the fall, which is a voting meeting. And so we're looking for someone else. We can't give him as your proxy. We have to have somebody else named to be there.
I can't wear both hats at the convention, unfortunately.
So this is a meeting in October. I believe it starts on the morning of the 17th, evening of the 16th.
The that Wednesday.
That's just the 17th. Anyways, of October for a couple days, and the voting meeting is on Friday?
I believe it's Friday evening.
Friday evening. So if there's anybody that would be interested in representing Quakertown.
So
Paul
do we have to
Stepanoff
vote on
had
that,
gone
or-
in the past, in last fall.
We have
And
to
he is-
vote on that.
You need a volunteer.
Need a
You
Need
need
a
to
volunteer.
volunteer.
I nominate Kaylin. No, just kidding.
I know, I was just voluntold. That's what they say in the military.
Do we have to vote on this today?
You don't have to vote on it today, you have to vote on it sometime.
Right, but
But the thing that would be helpful is this is a big event, and hotel accommodations would be appropriate to be provided. And they run out the space. So we kind of need a.
okay,
We
so
need
so we're
someone
not
to
going
volunteer.
to pass by this. This is something we need to discuss
Yeah.
in quite some detail at this moment.
Mitch said he'd volunteer.
Mitch is speaking up here.
You're going to go, Mitch? Okay, then if the board would support taking care of him and to go.
I'll make a motion that Mitch be our representative to the PSBA conference.
I'll second your motion, Mr. Jackson.
Have to say all those in favor.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? It's unanimous.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He volunteered and then he asked where it was. He volunteered and then he asked where it was.
Yeah. Harrisburg, right?
No, I'll be
Hershey.
there with you. I'll be there with you.
All right, I brought forth to the board Representation Week resolution. Some people may have seen the circulation of Representation Week. Represent Us is a non-partisan organization, and part of their purpose is to help promote civic engagement and civic knowledge to everyone. They have a resolution that they are circulating around the state of Pennsylvania and around the United States. I will read it off, and I am asking my fellow board members, fellow directors, to endorse such a resolution to help promote civic awareness further in our public school. I do know that there are some baseline civics classes, but I think that this resolution will help strengthen our commitment to the kids and to our neighbors, and let them know that, this is really, really important to us, and it's really important to the community that we have educated children growing up to be our future leaders. I'm going to read it, the resolution. All right. Whereas Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution guarantees its citizen a form of government in which voters elect representatives to carry out the powers of government, and whereas Articles 1, Section 2 of the Pennsylvania Constitution recognizes that all political power rests with the people, and whereas representation is an idea that requires elected officials to be responsive to all of their constituents, and whereas in a representative democracy, voters pick their representatives, and those elected to office are expected to be responsive to the will of the people. Whereas the United States Constitution was submitted to the states for ratification on September 17th, 1787, and whereas many surveys have found that those in the United States are lacking basic knowledge of the United States Constitution, whereas it may be inferred that many of those Pennsylvanians are lacking basic knowledge of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Be it therefore resolved that Quakertown Community School District in Bucks County of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania proclaims the period of Sunday through Saturday, which includes September 17th, to be Representation Week, and that our district administration and teachers should plan activities honoring the principles of representative democracy and both the United States and the Pennsylvania Constitutions. Be it further resolved that the municipality will encourage, or the school district will urge its faculty members to emphasize the principles of representative democracy and both the constitutions they apply to the subject of the classes taught during that week. And further, it be resolved that our municipal representatives will implore our county and commissioners to enact Representation Week proclamation honoring the principles of representative democracy and our constitutions as outlined above. Open for conversation.
My one concern would be the very last, further resolving of somebody else to do something.
Yeah.
That, you know.
I caught it just now there. Yeah. And I think it, the resolution is actually drafted for municipalities to pass on to the school district. I've bypassed our municipality. Although that might be my next meeting.
Yeah, it's almost like the first be it therefore resolved is okay, and the second two are sort of like almost an either or and might need a little editing. But I like the idea. I would tend to agree that most people have no clue of the amazing rarity in the course of human events that we have this freedom bestowed upon us thanks to our founding fathers. And it's important that we teach how this country came about and just the amazing fact that we can vote and turn over peacefully different governments every few years.
Any other conversation? Dr. Harner.
Yes, I'd like to ask Dr. Hoffman to talk about what we're required to do on Constitution Day, just for information.
Please.
Sure. So just to give you a little bit of a background on what the federal law already requires school districts to do, in September we have Constitution Day, where all of our buildings spend time in their curriculum talking about something related to the Constitution. So it depends on what grade level they're in. Sometimes they may read a book, sometimes they do some participatory activity. In high school, they delve in a little bit more into actually talking more about the Constitution. But this is separate from any class that they may be currently enrolled in. Usually about 2 weeks before the date, our office will send a big email to all the principals and social studies teachers typically, but we encourage any teacher to talk about it with resources, different lesson plans that they can use, activities, and what we expect for them to do that day and throughout the week. So just if you weren't aware that that's something that already happens in our schools every year, just wanted to give you that little bit of information.
Is there anything with keystones in the Constitution or something like that? I heard there was going to be another keystone test in relation to this. I don't know if that's exactly true or not.
At one point, there actually were supposed to be 10 Keystone exams, one of which was going to be civics. They scaled that down to the 3 that we have and have not really revisited adding more in right now. But they did pass that legislation asking for all students to have mandatory civics education, which we already do, and then to pass a civics exam. So the district is actually required to provide a civics exam to our students and, kind of use that information to determine how many students pass the exam, and then we have to report on that at the end of the year for one of our indicators. Our district has elected to utilize the already established questions from the national exam for students who would be looking for citizenship, or adults, anybody who's looking towards citizenship. And we've put all 100 questions into a bank. Students will be randomly selected 35, so similar to the actual citizenship test where you don't get all 100 questions. They'll get a random sampling. They'll be given that test in 8th grade because that's where we do the majority of our instruction in that, besides 12th grade, but the state requires us to have that information by the time they're in 11th grade, so it doesn't really help us too much to do it in 12th grade. Another one of those kind of unintended consequences of the way that they ask this to be done. So we're going to do it at the end of 8th grade. Students will be presented with that information as they always are, and now it'll just be an added assessment for them that we need to report on.
Maybe you could do it in 12th grade and give the 12th grader results for the 11th graders. Just be a year behind. Nobody will know.
That's how we get funded.
It is true.
there's no other conversation, I would like to motion to approve this wonderful resolution, and I'd ask kindly my fellow directors for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any objection? All right, moving on.
Motion passes unanimously. Yeah, you're supposed to say that.
Motion passes unanimously. It's a good one. Public comment on fiscal items presented for a vote. Do we have anybody? No. All right, and moving on to the fiscal agenda. Looking like we need to approve a change order with Nice Construction for the 6th grade center improvements. Business Service Department is requesting the approval of the change order with Nice Construction for the 6th grade center, and the improvements are about $22,297.88. Any discussion?
So I do want to say that there was some discussion at facilities meeting that we're actually not spending this money. There was a roughly $40,000 savings. So this is the change order.
It's still a net
after the
positive.
savings. So we're still netting a positive and not spending more money.
So, motion to approve? Oh, okay. Any other comment on that? All right, approve Bosch and James list for May 2018. Vote on the fiscal agenda. All right. All those in favor?
Make a motion.
Oh. Motion to approve the fiscal agenda. Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. I'm thankful.
Doing good. Second. I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Who made the initial motion?
Keith did make the original motion, didn't you?
Yes. No, I didn't make the initial motion, but I can.
We'll backtrack.
All right, Keith made the motion.
And then I
Galen will second. Right. Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstention.
Any objection? Motion passes unanimously with one abstention.
Oh, that's right. 8 and 1 abstention. 8 and 1 abstention.
Fiscal consent. Let me move along over here. I think it'll be easier. Yeah. There it is. All right. Fiscal consent agenda. I'm going to try and spare everybody all this. I will read it off. Approve the May 2018 bills list, 2018 budget transfers, approve the May 2018 treasurer's report, approve the First Amendment to the Food Service Management Company contract, approve the change order with S.J. Thompson Company regarding the Richland Elementary School bathroom renovations, approve intergovernmental cooperation agreement for the school resource officer, approve water filtration, thank you, and service rental agreements with Quench USA. Approve contract and advanced protection with Advanced Protection Company for 2018-2019. Approve disposal of obsolete Apple iPads with Classform. Approve JSTOR institutional participation agreement for the Quakertown Community High School Digital Library. Approve the sports complex 5-year $7,500 year sponsorship with Quakertown National Bank. Approve subscription with Hobson for the purchase of the Naviance platform for the high school and middle school students. And vote on the fiscal consent agenda. Motion to approve?
I just have a quick question.
Please.
Can someone share a little bit more with me? Sorry, let me get back to it. Some kind of advanced protection company? Oh, wait, it has a little note here. Sorry about that. So that's, okay, security for events. Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that better. Proceed. So that.
Oh, yeah, no, I was actually just reviewing that.
The,
Wasn't ready yet.
the iPads, we were getting what we expected, I'm guessing.
I was actually
Pleased.
more than I expected.
Oh,
7
good.
years old and
Nice, very good.
30, 40 bucks on that, so, over 7 years, that's
Not bad at all.
Not bad, yeah.
Any more conversation? Motion to approve?
I'll motion. Oh, I'll second.
I do want to, hold on 1 second, I'm just trying to find it. Is this where? Oh. So I do, just for the public record, and, you know, one of the things that I and several of my other friends on the board here, we always talked about sort of what the debt looks like for the district, what our spending habits are. And so, under the fiscal consent agenda, there is a report on here, talks about your cash, your investments, your debt services. And so, for the record, if you wanted to go in and look at some important documents, I think I just wanted to highlight that they're there for everybody. It talks about the debt that we carry as a district, that you can see where the spending, the bonds that have been issued throughout the years, and how much they are. So just to give you a ballpark, right now we carry about $146 million in debt, and through the bonds. So I think it's important for the general public to have information on where to go to find these things, so that we can continue to have some discussion.
That 146 includes NIDIG?
I don't know that this does. Is this the bonds for NIDIG in here or no?
I don't believe it does because this is the May report. I believe we got those in June, but I can double check with our finance director when she's
Yeah.
back from vacation on that. Yep.
Yeah. So nonetheless, I mean, you know, I think it's important that as we go through these years ahead of us, that we sort of highlight where the public's money is being spent.
It's comparable to you being in debt 1 year of your household income plus, for the record. We did have a motion. We did have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Objection? Motion passes unanimously. Facilities consent agenda. We're going to approve the temporary move of students from, forgive me, public comment regarding the NIDIG building arrangement.
Mr. Spear?
Mr. Spear, name and township residence, please.
Chris Spear, Milford Township. Actually, I wanted to jump ahead a little bit because I don't want to have to get up and speak twice. I actually wanted to commend the school and hope that you do vote to approve the new school resource officer. I did ask for that kind of a long time ago, after I spoke to Officer Lee, who said he did have a lot of interactions with middle school kids and with all of the the larger national attention on gun violence that finds its way into schools. I think having an additional school resource officer would be very helpful. So I know I'm out of line here, but I wanted to jump ahead so I don't have to come up again. The other thing is what was brought up really briefly I wanted to talk about something else, but I'll bring this up. That there was an offer from Faith Christian School to purchase Milford and Tohickon Valley. I'm not sure if that's part of any votes you're going to have tonight.
No.
Okay, well, I'll speak on that anyway. I'm all for selling those if we're not going to use them, and that makes sense. The fear I have with that, though, is that if vouchers do get approved for the state of Pennsylvania or nationally, that could really turn around to bite us in the butt, or to bite us, sorry. It's just that could essentially turn religious schools into charter schools, which if we sold those two schools, we could potentially be inviting 800 students from our district to attend these schools that we would have to pay for. So we really should consider that really strongly that it still might not be a good idea to sell to somebody who is going to use those buildings for schools. The final thing I wanted to say is you do have a vote on moving the Neidig Elementary School students to Tohickon Valley. If you do go forward with the entire Neidig renovation and addition, I think that's a good idea. But I really want you to consider, and I've said this many times before, possibly not moving forward with this, at least the addition onto Neidig. I believe there is another way. I've laid it out briefly here, and I can do it more formally, like in an email or something like that, but there's a way we can use the existing buildings we have, I think, without adding any more staff and still adding the necessary desks we need to close Tohickon Valley. So it's something to really consider, that the cost for this is now approaching what it would cost to renovate almost all of the schools that would need to be renovated. It's approaching the cost that it would take to build an entire new school with 600 desks in it. And as far as I know, you guys may know better, but you still haven't even gotten the numbers from the township and the borough as to whether or not there's going to be any roadway increase or any cartway improvements to either of the two roads or the bridge there, which could add significant costs to this project. So, as that stuff comes in, if that comes in higher than $2 million, now we're going to be exceeding the cost that it would be to build a new school, or exceeding the cost it would be to renovate 4 other schools. So we really should look at this under a finer microscope, I think, to consider not whether this is a good idea to move forward. And that's all I have to say. Unless anybody has a question.
It has came up, the charter school issue, just so you know, and a cost-effective analysis of whether all the things that you've brought up, we have certainly talked about in closed circle.
I'm curious to know if anyone, maybe you guys know, the experts in our audience, is there any anticipation of any additional roads that could cost us significant amounts?
There are not at this point. The township or the borough has said that just the improvements on the site are what we need. As the civil engineer on the project, we're starting to submit the project to Quakertown Borough, but all indications are we will not. Correct. We met with both the township and the borough, and
I do want to clarify one thing that we discussed about the money, because you're right.
I want to talk about that too. I wasn't sure.
It does kind of like.
Do we have to motion
Stab you in the-
first before we deliberate that?
We should. Theoretically, yes.
Okay, so then,
Motion to discuss?
well, no, you have to motion,
You have to make the motion before you can discuss it.
right,
Oh,
right. So,
oh, that's right. All right, facilities,
do we have any more public comment?
approve the temporary move to students tonight. Motion to approve discussion, essentially.
No.
I'll make the motion that we approve the temporary move of students from Neidig Elementary School to Tohickon Valley Elementary School building for the 2019-2020 school year.
But we're going to vote on it and discuss it.
We're going to discuss before
First,
we,
and then
So there's a
vote on
motion
it.
on the table. Is there
All right, open for discussion.
Second.
Right, seconded.
There we go.
Wonderful.
okay. Okay, so I do actually have some questions for this. So after, getting a lot of information from Zach, thank you so much for providing me with quite a bit of information. As I mentioned earlier, I have a concern about the $29 million price tag for Neidig, and I do understand. So one thing I did keep in mind, and I think this is pretty important. We closed Tohickon Valley with the intention that we were going to have eventually additional spaces down the road. So obviously, that is something that's important to me, and I want to make sure that we're already going to be pretty tight in our elementary schools for the next couple years. But when I started to dig into capacities, I started having more questions, and I'm not really sure I understand fully these different capacities. So for instance, if you look at the NIDIG renovation presentation that was presented by the reassignment committee, it says that 2018 to 19 maximum available capacity is at 23 students per regular classroom, which I know that that's the way you all are calculating that. But then if you go back and look at the Schrader report for existing use capacity, it says that we only have 2147. So there's a difference there in terms of overall capacity, and I think even when we look at the 2018-19 report that was given to us, I think that might even be a different number. So I'm just trying to get some clarity on that, if possible. Like, how do we determine those capacity numbers and which one is right?
Ms. Edwards?
Zach stole my book, so I'll do it from memory. Capacities can be calculated in different ways based on what you're trying to determine. So when the Schrader Group, and David can correct me if I'm incorrect in anything I say, when the Schrader Group did the facility study, there's a particular methodology that PDE requires in calculating building capacities. Okay. So that's what was used for that report.
Okay.
So I would call that theoretical or PDE capacity.
Does PDE follow anything in particular to get there? I mean,
they have a certain, I believe the differences are you assume that every space is being used for its intended purpose, as opposed to repurposing a space for a classroom that might have been a specialized room or something like that instead. Those are some of the differences. When we did the work with the Elementary Reassignment Committee, we also looked at what I would call the practical capacity, meaning each principal went through their building, identified all the places that were appropriate to be instructional spaces, and then we said, okay, if we assume an average of, I think it might have been 25, an average of 25 students in a room, or I'd have to go back and look at the exact number, but if we assume that, what capacity does that generate? And so that, to my terminology for that would be that's the practical capacity of how many students you can safely have in the building. But it doesn't necessarily use every space in the building in the way that it was intended to be used. Okay. So I think that would be the range of difference that you're seeing. We do have adequate classrooms, and we know the number of students that are supposed to be in those classrooms will fit in those classrooms. So from a practical standpoint, we're very tight, but we do have room. Like we can fit who we have.
So another thing I noticed on one of the reports is that we are going to be over capacity in POFs this year by almost 100 students, 89, I believe the number was.
Yes.
And do we anticipate there being any issues associated with that?
No, I believe all of the students that we have enrolled, we can successfully fit in the buildings. But it will be tight. I mean, we were transparent that we're going to be tight until the NIDIG edition is finished and we can redistrict. Okay. So yes, it will be tight.
Okay. So, I think that when you're looking at this also when I was looking at the bond numbers and looking at how much we're paying each year, I noticed that we're paying $362,000 per year until you hit 2029, and then it shoots up to $1.8 million for the next 1, 2, 3. Is that right? Is it right that the last year says $4 million? I mean, the bottom line is, I guess, the expense is going to increase drastically in 2029. Am I on track?
I don't have it right in front of me, but what it is, it's called wraparound debt. So as other debt falls off, you start to pay more on new debt so that you have a level payment. So you're not going through your budget year where you have these huge swings up and down. So that is correct. And our PFM, our financial advisors, structure that way intentionally and strategically to allow us to have a flat debt service payment. Because I'm not sure what you're looking at, but if you go all the way to the right, you'll see as you get down, the total local effort should actually
Yeah.
decrease, though, by the end of that.
That's not what I'm seeing here.
So you might just have just the NIDIG debt, so then that's not going to give you the full picture. That'll just give you
Maybe-
what that payment's going to look like, not the total local effort. So you have to factor in all of our debt from, for example, the high school project as well.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm actually, maybe I'm not looking at the right thing, but, so you're saying that at the end of, like, and this is why I'm bringing this up, this is my concern. So, down the road, we need to be thinking about what we're gonna do about QE. And if we exhaust all this debt, which we already have quite a bit of, now, then are we going to be able to have the money for QE? Now, Dr. Harner mentioned to me that, it's possible that down the road we would be looking at selling this district office and then using QE possibly as a district office. But then you'd have to redistribute those 300 students to elementary schools. And even with the addition on NIDIG, I don't know that we will have the capacity to do that.
Ma'am, what the strategy has been for the last 3 years since we've had the Schrader report and then not having the money to do the 126 acres has been to add on the capacity to NIDIC, have another community committee that looks at where all the elementary students go. You will have, before you make that decision, you'll have the ability to make a decision to consider turning QE into the district office. Because we would have plenty of capacity to absorb those students there across the other 4 remaining elementary schools. When those elementary, by the overhead of the school, not the teachers, we still need the teachers, but the overhead staffing of the school would pay for the entire debt of the NIDIC renovation. So then you have that entire net debt service available, that monies you would spend, whatever that is, I don't know how many $100,000 a year to do, to sell this building at a serious profit, because you're going to have a hospital here, this is going to be, and maybe 2 hospitals here. And then that would offset the debt for part of the renovation to make it
Right.
turning QE into office space with still money left over. So going off and trying to put on more debt, you would have very minimal to finish that, and you would not and you'd be down 1 more building.
My concern, though, is not even as much, it is the money, but that after the NIDIC renovation, when we redistrict everyone, we're only adding 150 seats. How would we be able to redistrict? I mean, I know we're going to have,
We're expecting to have 4,900 students in 3 years. But it's right around 4,900 students, down from 5,200.
No, I've looked at those reports, and just so you know, the last couple years, the enrollment has been a little bit higher than what it has been projected. Not to say, I still think, the trends show that it is declining, but even if it declined, it would have to decline pretty significant number. And so I'm just trying to think ahead. Another point, sorry, I'm all over the place, but so when I was looking at how is it that what can we do to, maximize our space that we have now? And I noticed that in the 6th grade center, at least on paper, it looks like we have, that building has a capacity of 714, and we anticipate about 423 enrolled. So that's almost 300 available seats in that school. And so one of my thoughts was, well, why would, I mean, and again, this is just brainstorming, like, could we move the district office to that building, you know, and keep QE as an elementary school? So just some different thoughts, and then also with Strayer, but I hear Strayer's packed from everybody I talk to, but that building also has some room. And I know that we had thought about previously making, you know, the sixth grade center maybe a 5-6, but we don't have the capacity for that. I did the numbers on that. And I'm interested in hear what you all have to say, but I really am, I'm just, I guess, genuinely concerned about the price tag being as much as it is, considering we're closing schools, we're cutting staff. You know, one of our promises coming in was that we would be fiscally responsible, and I just don't know how responsible it is to spend that amount of money.
I mean, we're building an addition on a school we already have for 30 million, and there's talk of selling 2 whole properties for like 2 mil. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And if this location's worth $7 million, this is my first place I think I want to sell. Because I think, why can't we relocate this district office building to Milford? All right.
Well,
Discussion?
is there any thoughts about that?
Anybody else have anything to say? Or, I mean, you guys can just think about it. But I think that, you know, we're kind of going, it feels like we're going through motions. And you know, what's the rush?
Well, the rush is, you need a place to put the kids. The rush is that that we're closing a school, you know, TV, and so, you know, we need to do something, right? So it's a difficult decision. I think one of the things from the financial standpoint that I just want to make a clarifying point on is that I think that although the budget is 28 million, there's 3 million built into that is this, what do they call it, the contingency dollars, so may or may not be spent. And then you can, you know, potentially save $1 million by moving the kids for a year. And
it's a potential million. I mean, and
you know, I think you know, the question is the train already out of the station, and can you stop it, or is this sort of making us feel better by dialoguing about it? And you know, is there anything really that we can do? So bottom line is, you know, the schools that are closed are closed. I think you know, from my standpoint, it's how do you better it in the future? To kind of go back and say, well, we should open up this school again and this again and that again. And either way, you're going to be spending a lot of money. Spend 10 million here, 15 million here, it's going to start adding up. So I don't know if there's a right answer. I think it's the cards we were dealt, and I think we've asked everybody to the leadership to watch their spending with NIDIG, the expansion. I think we look at opportunities to save the district money during the expansion. And then we watch our other spending that we talked about at the facilities meeting, you know, when they come asking for 1.3 and we say we kept it at $1 million. And then look to even shave that. Is there an opportunity there? Is there something that's vitally important that we fix versus not? So I don't know. It's my opinion.
I mean, so I asked the question, what is the cost of NIDIG if we just renovated it and did not add an addition? And the ballpark of that is around 10 million. However, that doesn't make it a 21st century school, and that I did not realize. So, and those of you who don't know in the audience, my children are going to this school, so obviously I want them to have a great school to go to. And I don't want to put us in a position where we don't have, I think at the elementary school level is where you want to have the most capacity and flexibility and smaller class sizes and all those things. But it's like Dave said, you know, we're going to spend $30 million to renovate and add an addition, and then we're selling 2 buildings and getting like $2 million in order to do that. And meanwhile, we have almost 300 seats capacity in the 6th grade center. Like, I don't have necessarily, is there any way that we could utilize that space for anything else to sort of reallocate students? I mean, I don't know.
The one thing I would say is, when you have 9 people sitting up here, we all have great ideas. And sometimes those great ideas come quick, and sometimes those great ideas take a long time to foster. So you're sitting here, you and Dave, and you're coming up with some intriguing ideas. We had the committee several months ago now spend a lot of time looking at all kinds of different possibilities. And they took a lot of time, detailed time, and they came up with the path we've chosen. Now, I'm not about to say that you can't be knee-deep, 10 miles down the road and suddenly realize you made a mistake, come back and go in a different direction. But like Keith has said, we're going to spend money whichever path we go on. To upgrade NIDIG would be $10 million. If Milford were to fall into this equation in some manner, that'd be another $10 million.
Only if it was a school, by the way.
Right, but I mean, even if it was a district office, it would still take lots of money to upgrade. My point being is, wherever you move the money, you've got to spend the money. And as you were saying, we're looking at renovating one of our older, we've closed one of the older schools in Tohickon Valley. We're about to renovate the other older school, obviously not taking QE into account, but we're also about to renovate the other older school and bring that a lot closer. We're improving the schools that need to be improved and getting rid of some of the ones where it would be great if they could be improved, but getting them off our books is still another good idea. And again, I understand what you're saying, but in my opinion, I don't want to say we've set a course because you can always change it, but I think we've made the best decision for this district going forward. And again, we've already floated a bond. We've got $10 million in the kitty now, I believe, on a bond we've already accessed. The money's already there to do it.
To be clear, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying the vote tonight is whether or not the students should go to Tohickon Valley.
Correct.
Right? So I am not opposed to that. In fact, there was overwhelming support from the community and the parents on the survey. What I'm discussing now in an effort to plan long-term is not whether or not we should renovate NIDIG. It's the price tag. And, I think the reassignment committee did a great job. And I'm not drastically trying to change what it is that they are recommending. But then again, they also were put in a certain, parameters of this is what you can negotiate and recommend. We didn't open up all these other options. We told them, this is where you can fit. What do you recommend? So what I'm simply stating, and what I find quite ironic right now, is the more left-leaning candidates are sitting here talking about how to be more conservative with the money. It was $20 million just a few months ago, and then all of a sudden it's 29. And I'm thinking about our senior citizens, the ones that you all are always talking about, who are on fixed incomes and all of this. So while I'm not saying tonight that we have to make a decision necessarily on, like a final decision on this, I'm just simply stating, I think that we do need to evaluate, and I have not seen a breakdown of the cost of NIDIG. For instance, all these special spaces, this is the price tag for this, or these bells and whistles, so that I can say, okay, well, let's, not have all of these luxuries and maybe try and be a little bit more reasonable.
Well, I mean, if you and Dave and anybody else has a passion for these ideas, like you just said, we're here today to vote on the idea of moving the children from one place to the other. That vote can be had regardless of your opinion on those buildings. So I would suggest, being the chairman of the facilities committee, that you place this in the hands of the facilities committee, because we don't want to debate that kind of stuff here at the macro level.
All due respect, you told me the same thing when I tried to talk about this in the facilities committee, Ron.
I'm sorry, help me out with that. I told you to talk to Zach and get some information.
Okay, okay.
Didn't I?
Let's take a step back, okay, and we'll move on. The point of having these meetings is to discuss with the public long-term planning and strategy and ideas, correct? I'm not allowed to talk to you guys all together.
No, you absolutely can.
Right?
I'm
You
just
can't.
saying,
But when I mentioned this and I kind of brought it up a little bit in the facilities committee, you're like, this is not the place to talk
well, no,
about this.
you were bringing up a brand-new idea, and we had no information. I said, talk to Zach and get some more information for your thinking. And now Dave brought up Milford, and well, it's a great idea, but there's a lot of background information we need to get from the administration to justify it one way or the other, and we don't have it sitting here. We didn't have it sitting in the facilities committee.
But you don't, listen, the point of this conversation is to kind of get a pulse on what is everybody feeling about this? And that at the end of the day, it all comes from the concern of a $29 million price tag.
Yeah, I think, I applaud you. I like spitball ideas, and I think that, having a dialogue around a subject is excellent. The question is, how deep in this project are we at this point?
Yeah, but just
and how do we sort of do the best we can with the cards we're dealt? I mean, that's kind of what
And I would just add that, sorry, just let me get this one thing in, that I'm sort of counting on the facilities committee to bring these kinds of things out. Why did it balloon from 20 to 29? That's, I don't know, 50%, slightly less, 50% increase.
I'd be fired from my job.
Well, in fairness, the estimates, and I'll let you guys speak to this if you'd like, those estimates were made by someone separately, right? And then when you guys came in and took a better look at this, some of those costs, and plus they were like 4 years ago or something like that. Would you like to elaborate on that?
If I could, Mr. President?
Please, Dr. Arnold.
I'd like to have Mr. Schrader and Jamie Lynch come up and kind of talk to you about the timelines and the decision-making timeline, why it's important to have the decisions in sooner than later, having the discussion, make a decision, but they have permitting to do and other things. Could you come up here for a second and briefly talk about what's going on right now in the NIDIG project that we're well down the road? I think Zach shared with you, we've already committed or spent a couple $100,000, and we haven't put a spade in the ground or had any final drawings. So, David?
Can we step back, though, and talk about the cost first?
I can give you the very small bit of history on that part. I believe that the cost that you're hearing about right now, I think the construction manager and ourselves were within a few $100,000s of each other in terms of what that value is. I think the $20 million that's been referenced was a number from, I don't remember when it was, last fall at one point when there was a question, a very simple question put out there. If you take the $10.5 million of NIDIG renovations and somebody said add X number of classrooms, that was purely what it was. If you had to add X number of classrooms, how much are those 10 extra classrooms? So there was a number added to the $10.5 million, and I think that's where that number came from. So it was a very simplistic conversation. In November, when you asked us to start looking at a project at NIDIG, we went back and started to work very closely with the administration in the building, and there was a heavy conversation about trying to create a level of parity between the spaces in POF and what would eventually be the spaces in NIDIG. So examples are currently, as you may or may not know, you do know with children that will attend that school, art circulates. Art doesn't have a real home. Music is taught in, they call it instrumental music, we would call that a practice room. So the kinds of things that are there, then we started to construct with the administration, what does it look like if it looks more like POF? And I don't mean aesthetically or the kinds of spaces in the rotunda, it means how many spaces and what type. So when you got to the end of that, you got to a total square footage to accommodate 600 to 650 kids, and that's where this high $20 million number came from. So that was the history, and that's how we got to the point where it is what it is today.
Now, question about that, like, wasn't and this was before I was on the board, but wasn't the whole idea and thought process behind, one of the thought processes behind closing Tohickon Valley was that the project for Nidec would be more along the lines of something like 20 million? And is that something that was shared with the reassignment committee? Like, wasn't that part of the whole plan? Yes.
I think the plan was twofold, so, right? The plan included the building, the renovations itself, but the other was overhead reduction. So I think that, right, that's my understanding.
That's where most of the savings came from, was the squeezing the teachers.
It's the economies of scale when you have at Poff Elementary School 12 to 14 students in a classroom, and the same classroom over on the other side of the district is 28 students, is making, that was part of it. So you have economies of scale. You're going from 6 buildings where there's a lot of inequities in class sizes, or differences, not inequities, but differences in class sizes, and squeezing it down to 5, and then the staffing piece comes, well, if you squeeze it down, then you have, and you keep similar class sizes, or as a goal, your class sizes, say 20 for elementary, for kindergarten, 22, 23 for first and second grade, third grade, 25 for third grade, 28 for fourth and fifth grade. When you get that down, you need less staffing, plus you don't have a principal, a nurse, and all this. So that's part of that discussion. The next part of the discussion, which I shared just a little bit ago, the funding that's going to go to Nidec will be released by, when we have that additional capacity and then redistrict again, the money that you're spending, Zach, for the 3 loans we would need would be about $900,000 a year or something like that, that comes out of our annual budget, or about 1% of our budget, a little bit less than 1%. That we could use that for the next project, and that'd be freed up because of the overhead savings from the principal, the nurse, and all that.
But you're just you're still going to have the same amount of buildings, right? So how would it be a reduction?
You would have 4 elementary schools versus 5.
So let me add one more piece to this, because I think keep in mind that if you had kept Tohickon Valley and this, none of this we didn't have any influence on how people made decisions about existing buildings versus new. But if you had kept both buildings, staffing aside, pull that number out of the mix, in 2016, the study said that with 1-year escalation, those 2 projects were, I think, $10.5 million each to renovate them, just to get the systems rebuilt, to get the skin working correctly and all those. You would have kept all the educational spaces that you had. And in 2 buildings that accommodate in the neighborhood of 350 or something like that, you're okay with multi-purpose spaces. So you're okay with a building that just has a cafeteria, cafegematorium is what we affectionately call that. And in that size building, it's okay to accommodate that in that scheduling. So Scott would have to, in that building, if he expanded to 600 to 650, suddenly he cannot actually accommodate gymnasium or phys ed around a dining program. So there are 2 parts to this. As soon as you go to a building that is 600 or 650 students, now you've added a gym in addition to that. And so the gym adds a pretty good chunk of money to that overall project. And the thing about the 2016 analysis is, again, it said 1 year of escalation. If you build this out to 2018, 2019, 2020, you have to add 3% per year to those numbers. And just doing rough math in my head, I think it's $12 to $12.5 million per building. So if you just renovated those 2, if you kept TV online and now you've got the same capacity between NIDIG and TV, you'd be in that $26, $27 million range just to get the buildings up to current systems, not current educational design. So there's kind of a relative equality to the dollar values if you really put them together.
we're spending money.
And thank you for the history on the, thank you for the history on the 20 million, because that was, so it sounds like that was kind of a, I don't want to say bogus number, but it's not fair to say it ballooned from 20 to 29.
I think it was a simplistic number, yeah.
But we should know, I think, before we make, like, big decisions like this, that we should have known that $29 million, I would think, a while back. And what I would request for the future maybe would be, so that maybe we could just move on from this topic, is there a way we could get a rough breakout of the NIDIG renovation, sort of by, like you said, the gymnasium is this, and just so we can kind of get an idea?
Yeah, so we put together the schematic package that went out almost a month ago now, right? So Jamie's team went ahead and did full estimating on it. They have not published that, even though the number is exactly the number that we're talking about, because they're still waiting to hear whether it includes phasing around the students or whether it includes not phasing, so they can see if there's an impact to that total number. We can, but we can tell you what those different spaces cost, yes.
Okay. All right, well, it just sounds like there needs to be obviously a little bit more research into some of this, but again, I don't think that is going to impact the very near future, where we're saying we know we want to renovate NIDIG, right? To the extent maybe we might have some continued dialogue, but that won't prevent, I don't think, anything in the near future, as well as the vote tonight, so.
Anyone else?
Can I jump topic real quick? I want to take a step back. I wish some of the soccer team members were still here, but we have a soccer mom here, so I'll ask a question. I'll ask a question of our superintendent. Hello. It's okay. No. The soccer team, the girls' soccer team, was talking about their needs for Alumni Field, and I was looking at their schedule, and I counted 6 night games, not 5. Maybe I missed one. Maybe they were already considering that senior week was going to be held at the stadium, but they were using bathrooms and scoreboards and certainly the snack area. Their first home game in the evening is August 28th. I don't think there's any way we could provide them all of their needs by that time. First of all, is there any way we could provide them all of their needs this year, still within their season, in a general sense?
In the fall season, no, sir.
Okay, so there's no way we could even give them all that stuff.
I've already been talking to the ladies who spoke tonight and the teammates and all that. We're going to be able to accommodate their request. I asked Sylvia for scheduling for the night games there. So let's take that off the table. Then the decision. And we don't have we use the field in the winter months when it's warming up. The baseball's out there, the teams are out there, the clubs are out there. We're renting the facility to get its full purpose and the concession stand, the bathrooms, the storage capacities, and all. That's still not done.
Okay, so there really is. It almost sounds like there's really no need then to even revisit the girls' soccer team's request. Okay, if that's the case, but
the facility needs. Do we want it to? We're back into the springtime now. We have lacrosse.
But so like it is scheduled to happen, but when is it scheduled to happen?
It's not. The board has not approved the expenditure.
Oh, okay.
That's the issue.
So the question.
It come to the facilities committee. I don't even think we discussed the facilities.
Well, it's been there a couple times, but it's below the line for funding.
So maybe it's just a general request. Is that something the facilities committee wants to take up and consider the needs of not just the soccer team, but every other team that might be using that facility this year? Is there a need to jumpstart it? And that's I'm not on the facilities committee. So you had one team come up and ask the question. I'm just going to say, take a look at it and see what you think.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. You've been quiet all night, sir. You don't have anything?
There's no chance I would put that through right now. Just throwing it out there. So we could talk about it. But
sounds good.
I think it's the field's beautiful out there. But it's a plan for. I'm getting harder.
Yeah, there's so many
products right now.
Right.
Well, while we're ganging up on the facilities committee, when I first we seem to be getting more tasks.
I know, right?
When I first toured the new high school, renovated high school, my jaw kind of hit the floor as to how nice it was. This sounds goofy, but if that's an A-level building, what's a B-level building cost? Like, does it have to be that nice? Can it be a little bit less nice? Can it just be a little more utilitarian? Does it have to be that darn fancy? Do we really need really cool cushions and, like, I don't know, is there a rock climbing wall in there?
Do we need a glass clear story? Can we just do brick?
Anyway,
Yeah,
you know
that was
what
one
I'm
thing
saying?
Ron brought up, yep.
There's a lot of money. Like, to me, that was like, wow, this is a freaking school for kids. It sounds goofy to say, well, when I went to school, it was hot and a stupid, cement block. But anyway, the other side of me says it's marketing. The other side of me says, oh, well, yeah, just like a hotel or a restaurant or some other facility tries to make it look nice to attract people. But at the same time, that's an interesting thing to wrestle with, because we're not a business. We're spending someone else's money to make this really nice, and I don't really know, do I get my money back out of that investment because we're attracting better people? I have no idea. But those things go through my head, so I'm just blurting it out here to pollute your heads with those hard-to-know questions
That's a great-
and answers.
I think this is a great point to push forward, ladies and gentlemen. Recommended action. The facilities.
We had a vote?
Yep, I'm going to read it right now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to read it before we vote.
We are, he read it.
I let him do it again. President, come
All
on
right.
now.
The Facilities Department is requesting approval to the temporary move of students from Neidig Elementary School to Tohickon Valley Elementary School for building for the 2019-2020 school year, with the option to extend to the 2021 school year. The Tohickon Valley Elementary School building shall be Neidig Elementary School during the temporary relocation for all PDE and any other statutory requirements.
And I wanted to just add one more thing. Some people, and I saw this in the paper, that someone made a comment that Tohickon Valley is not safe. That's not true. So for any concerned parents out there that believe that's the case, it's not the case. It's in about the same condition as Neidig. So
All in favor, say aye.
I do want to talk about it, though, because I think there's some important things that we talked about at this meeting before, so that we're continuing to look at. And one was our concern of the kid on the bus, the young kindergartner from Haycock that will have to now move. So in the documents that we reviewed at the facilities committee meeting, they're here posted, our transportation analysis, and I appreciate that, Zach, for looking into that for us. And there's still more movement on this as far as those students are concerned, so that we can maybe spend a little bit of money to make sure we can cut down those hour commutes. And there's only a handful of kids it really affects.
Thank you for bringing that up.
But I think it's vitally important that we do that. And the second thing I would like to say, on a personal note, if Tohickon Valley was to remain open, my kids would go there this school year, and I would have no problems with it. All four of my kids have attended Tohickon Valley. It's not the nicest thing, but let's not forget the core of a school district is not how nice the building is, it's the people inside the building. And so no matter what we do, we aren't going to change the dynamics of the teachers and the staff. We may have to relocate them for a temporary time frame to another classroom environment, but they are the ones that are going to make the impact on the students, not how nice the building is for 1 year. So like I said, if it was to remain open today, my youngest would go there, and I would have no problem sending them there. So,
and luckily, Principal Gottschalk was the principal at that elementary school previously, and so he's very familiar with the building. So that makes me feel a bit better too.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. on earth?
Steve got disconnected. Any objection? Motion passes unanimously.
You cut me off.
Didn't know you left.
Say aye, just say aye.
No, hi. All right, so Human Resources consent agendas. Public comment for the Human Resources. It was so long, I got lost.
You have a public comment?
Can I just ask a question about the vote for?
Please. Yeah.
That's my neighbor,
I'm
by
gonna
the
put
way.
you on the spot. Name and residence, township.
Melissa Anderson and Quakertown, Richland.
Richland, yeah.
I just wanted to, after the students, my daughter goes to NIDIG. So after NIDIG gets renovated and, you know, they're done with the TV and you guys are all going to redistrict, is that the last of the redistricting students?
I'm going to take that one real quick.
Oh, I want to
because-
take that one. Come on.
You want to do that one?
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
it's the last time, just like the other last time was the last time.
Exactly. In our all-knowing boredom, no, we would love it to be the last time. That's the plan. But, you know, we said that how many other times before, and things changed. We have no plans, as far as I know, after we redistrict.
Could we talk about how
Okay.
we've improved in our commitments? And I know some of the people in the audience who have been participants in the committees.
Well,
Your kids wouldn't be.
The board would be able to promise that redistricting would never occur again if everybody in every neighborhood in the school district has roughly the same number of children every year into the future.
Yeah, we used to do,
So
I
the-
don't know if you were
the-
here when we had the open areas, because I lived in the open areas. What it was is there was various neighborhoods around town, and what they did was annually, they would decide, okay, well, that school's dwindling in population, so we're going to take this kid and send him to that school this year. Well, the next year, oh, that school's, so we'll take that kid, the same kid, and send him to that school over there now. That's the way this district handled keeping class sizes the same. The only other way is to occasionally redistrict when populations shift from neighborhoods and one school dwindles, but the other school starts to swell. You've got to redraw the lines. So, but we've committed, when we first did the redistricting, we committed to a 5-year limit. You would not
So what year are
redistrict.
we on now?
We're in the middle of year 4, I believe.
So next
Yes.
year would be.
Right, but.
You will have met the 5-year commitment that you made at the time we last redistricted.
Right.
By the time we redistrict when NIDIG is finished.
Right.
We will have met the 5 years.
Well, the thing
It
is.
doesn't include the
Right.
Tehiccan Valley
Correct.
students who were moved because of the building closure, but no other student in the district was redistricted. Right.
The problem with that is, we're shifting kids from Neidig to Hicken Valley next year. We're then shifting them back to Neidig, I think, and some to POF and some to Neidig the next year, once they don't need to Hicken Valley anymore. But it's not quote-unquote redistricting, it's just shuffling the kids because of the construction. But tell that to a parent whose kid's being the one who moves,
Right.
it's redistricting to them, and I understand. But when you talk about clear redistricting, we had a 5-year plan we're still in the middle of.
Mhm.
And come the end of the construction, when all is said and done, we have no intent
Yeah.
to do this again for 5 years. Yeah.
And I know you can't give a definite answer because you don't know what's going to happen or whatever, but I grew up in Chalfont. I'm new to Quakertown, but this is the first time I've ever heard of so many redistricting and moving kids. I heard one story where an older daughter went to one school and the younger daughter went to another school, and the mom puts them on 2 different buses. Like, that's crazy to me that people are going through this. I've never heard, like I said, I went to Lansdale Catholic. I knew that Chalfont area, but I've never heard of a district doing this almost every year, closing a school, moving students, separating families. Like, I hope this is really, I feel like you guys are playing catch up sometimes. I hope this plan is like a definite plan where students could stay in a school for more than a year, or kids or brother and sister are going to the same school, because it's very taxing to the parents that deal with us.
Yeah, I lived in
And
the,
we're
like I said, I lived in the
paying
open
for it.
area when I first moved into this district, and I had 4 children. Now, one was too young to go to school, but we were told that each of my 3 children, we live in the same house, same street, they were each going to be sent, they're all elementary school-age children. They were all going to be sent to a different elementary school. That's what we were told.
That's
Crazy to me.
man.
So
Well, we fixed
Well, we
it.
don't do that anymore.
I think the bottom line, I think the takeaway is that we are very sensitive to that. I think, the administration, I know the board members are. My kids were in 2 different middle schools. It was painful. I get it. What you're saying, we lived it. So I think we're very sensitive to that. And I think, we appreciate you kind of giving us your insight. I can tell you that I think that most of us are committed to making sure that we try to minimize, we keep the student at our focus of our decisions.
Right.
And to the best that we can. And so I think that's at least my promise to you guys, is that to the community, that's what I'll do personally.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
And keep that in mind when you consider our military personnel. They redistrict quite frequently.
Well, the reason why I ask is because my husband's active duty Army, and my now 7-year-old, she moved 6 times in her first 4 years of her life. And moving, we lived in a place, the longest we've ever lived was 18 months. And thankfully, she's been in 90 this whole time. We haven't had to move. But I can't even imagine the connections and ties that she has with 90 and her classmates and her teachers and her principal. I can't imagine her having to go through. I'm curious to see how the Tohickon move will happen this
together,
time.
yeah.
Yes, but I'm saying if there was a future thing, like that's what I don't want to happen. They're both military kids. My son's pre-K, so he was a baby when we moved, but we've been all over the country. So we have roots here now, and that's where I want her to stay. So.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for attending the meeting and give us your opinion. Human Resources Consent Agenda. Appointment of the school safety and security coordinator, resolution, supervisory technology staff, professional staff, support staff. Vote on the Human Resources Consent Agenda. Any discussion?
Need a motion first.
Oh, I already did, and then her public comment,
Somebody
right?
else has the motion.
You can motion if you want.
Oh, go ahead then.
Motion to vote on the Human Resources Consent Agenda as proposed.
So I must have missed
I
this
did.
when I was reviewing it. The motion to, Nancy, school safety and security coordinator?
Do you remember me talking about the fact that, in my legislative comment, that there would be a security position discussed later on? It's legislatively mandated that we have such a person. And the administration chose Nancy Ann to be the security.
And she's been doing that role.
I mean, yeah, she's been
since the
handling the
summer of
facilities since, so
2014.
that's the reason this is here. It's legislatively mandated that every school have such a person.
I was wondering, is that, when I think about the command structure, you think about, you're up here. Think about a coordinator being, a little bit lower. That's why I was wondering. I don't know.
They actually recommended that the superintendent be appointed. And, yeah, so that's the level that they're anticipating this role playing, so.
He is former Army.
I'm good at delegating. That's my team.
I mean, Nancy Ann's already in charge of the facilities in general. She oversees that, so security is just a component of that in a sense, isn't it? Or what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I was thinking like of somebody who's like the worker, person that's the worker bee. You're the commanding officer. You got people underneath you that,
Joe, how you doing?
You get this guy in charge of safety, this one's, I don't know. It just seemed weird to me, but that's fine.
I think
That's
when you look at the job description that PASBO put together based on the actual legislation, most of it is command and coordination. So it's a liaison role with the county, with the state, with a lot of the agencies that are cooperating in trying to improve school safety. And certainly some of the things other staff members will be assisting. Like, I'm not going to personally inspect every building in order to fill out the required survey that will come out. I'll be part of a team that does that, but I won't do that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Public comment for policies, program items. Anybody have any public comment? All right, moving on. Policy and programs consent agenda. Approve agreement with Penn Foundation, Inc., Student Assistance Program for the 2018-2019 school year. Approve agreement with the Training Institute at Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Community Center. Approve agreement with Bucksmont Academy for 2018-2019 school year. Approve agreement with the PA School for the Deaf for the 2018 school year. Approve agreement with Brett Denovi and Associates, LLC, for the 2018-19 school year. Approve agreement with Epic Health Services for the 2018-2019 school year. Any discussion before we vote? Motion. Thank you. Second.
I'll second. Oh, get him.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was an aye. Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Information items. Board briefing book. A reminder that updates to the board briefing book is now located in the library tab, as well as information and the data how to best view the board briefing book on your QCSD laptop. I don't think I need to read this, do I? No. There we received a thank you note from one of our previous students. I will retain his name for privacy, but fellow directors, if you wanted to read that, it's in your email. Any new business board comment?
I would just like to thank you, Mr. Akmanowicz, for running the meeting in my absence, and you did a good job because no riots broke out.
Well, thank you very much. I did the best I could. All right, open for, so there's no new business from any of the other board directors? Open comment then from anybody in the audience? All right, dates for board members.
May I
yes.
go back and circle back to, didn't want to beat a dead horse here.
But you obviously are.
I'm getting text messages here that because of some of the words that were said by board members, that the effort of our architect and our construction management folks of making some very expensive decisions was not clear in their minds, and I can't afford to have you leave the meeting. Zach, please tell me what you're saying.
Yeah, so when you were having the conversation, there was some confusion about is this a addition project or an addition and a renovation? And the comments were made, we have time to discuss and figure that out. That's what I heard, and I think that's what David Schrader and Jamie heard. And I did talk to them. There's really not time to figure that out because the project stalls unless they know which direction to go towards at this point.
So
they need to go forward with permitting. They can't do the HVAC planning. We can't do end user meetings because we don't know what we're.
But we were doing that anyway, but I'm concerned, what's the decision the board hasn't made?
Well, if it's just an addition or an addition and a renovation, the permitting that they need to submit, those are two different entire plans altogether.
There wasn't a motion on the
Right,
table.
but,
No.
I mean, we approved the plans provided for us a couple meetings ago, correct? I mean, essentially, we already approved spending the $29 million. We approved the design that Mr. Schrader put in front of us, and we approved to go forward with it. We just approved the shift today, but we approved plowing ahead with a $29 million project.
Perfect, that's clear then. I
Correct?
just wanted to make sure that
I mean,
that was
I mean,
clear that they should go.
we did that, didn't we?
I believe
We
picked-
did, we voted on that, because I remember I voted against closing,
Right. So-
Cohican was one of my first votes when I came on this board last year.
So if anybody wants to shy away from that,
Yeah.
that movement, they would have to make the motion, and we would have to proceed in a different direction.
Right, we're good.
Yeah, I mean,
Just a point of clarification, sorry. The question was asked, can we break out the pricing for all the different pieces? That doesn't hurt us to do that, to tell you that. That is something we can easily do for you. It's a question of, are you trying now to pull some of those out? Because the gentleman behind me has the set ready to submit to the borough to get the process going.
Submit.
I don't think I mean, in order to do certain things, I think this, like I said, I think that the train is out of the station. And that was because I remember we voted on that plan, I think it was Plan 4 or whatever it was.
Because they came up with the D at the end, remember?
Yeah, and then,
So we're good then, I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified and they can press on.
Mr. President, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
All right. Dates for board members is available in your board docs. I will refrain from reading them all off. And motion to adjourn. Anyone? I'll second. We are dismissed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Fire me.
If anyone who has not been over to the academy